kind of thing that's sort of ingrained in people. I mean, yeah, religion is part of it. Societal structures are a part of it that sort of condition us to believe that sex is inherently destructive unless you're following a certain set of rules.
They build in that feeling of having to be bashful about it, about enjoying yourself, and then having people know about it. Ooh, like, oh no. You aren't like, oh, I'm going to really enjoy this juicy, delicious apple, and I might be like, well, somebody might see me go, It's like, why is that derivation of pleasure okay to show everyone? Some naked man was like running around in Tacoma, and she said she called the police on him. And I'm kind of like, what violent harm comes of seeing a penis?
Divert your eyes, kids. You can't see a naked body, even
you
though
hit the nail on the head. She was like, but the kids. Welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Max Headroom, and you should subscribe and I promise I'm not that goofy for the whole episode. So.
Well, I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and God, I wish we had proper editors to make it actually look like you were Max Headroom with the rotating background and make you look all square and stuff like that. That'd have been cool.
Hell yeah.
And properly cut things so it's probably something most of the viewers don't even remember. It's something from the 80s. It had to be an 80s kid to remember that shit. Don't forget, we Casey and I,
kids should not have been doing cocaine.
Oh man,
well, nobody should, but
what a time to grow up, let me say. So Casey and I, we write our own music. It's available. Oh yeah, stick around to the end of the episode, like timestamp down there. If you want to check out a clip of it, you can get music on iTunes, Spotify, places like that. I think Patreon too. You get some music if you give us a few bucks to help support the show. Because, this show is kind of doesn't have a whole lot of support. So, shoestring budget and all that. You can go to our website, ksmvidcast.com. That's a great place. To find all kinds of things, including merch and all kinds of stuff that we do. And, if our YouTube channel ever gets shut down because of controversial topics, that's the place you can get sort of a backup. Casey, what do you think we should talk about today?
Well, speaking of cocaine, hookers.
Hookers and blow. Fuck yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm in.
YouTube watching right now. Oh, they are already demonetized. This has got to be a record.
I don't know. We don't really have many monetized episodes, do we? Like everything is kind of on the edge.
Actually, most of them are, but I don't know. Like depends on how closely a look they really take.
That's true.
Just kind of randomly pay attention to something. Because there's been plenty of ones that should have been demonetized and they weren't.
and
that's people getting the raw stuff.
Stick it to the man. Yeah, stitch that, Jimmy.
Speaking of raw, yeah, we were talking about, well, we were going
hookers and blow, right?
well,
Tell
we
me
didn't
more.
talk about blow that much, but we don't talk about blow. No. But we way back, like 3 years ago, at the beginning of season 1, we did an episode on this, on like prostitution, and we only gave it like 20 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
these windbags only talked 20 minutes about prostitution. Can you believe
it? Yeah. And given that what we can talk about Star Trek for 2 hours. Yeah, I mean that. I think we both have some pretty strong feelings about sex work. And yeah,
well, I mean, for the basic principle that it's just human beings doing perfectly natural things and engaging in economy. Whether you choose to make that economy black market or draw tax off of it, that's up to you. But then, at least don't be a hypocrite when you're bitching about the problem.
Speaking of hypocrisy, a lot of these legislators who pass these kinds of bills and stuff that ban sex work, they're some of the biggest customers of said sex work. It's kind of hard to take you seriously if you're saying, oh, this is morally reprehensible, but then you're like going to the red light district every night.
Right. I mean, honestly, like there should be no stigma to it. Like it should be such a natural part of society that, imagine if you're like temporarily unhappy in your relationship and you don't really want to end it over just sex, but you do just because society. But imagine a society where it would be totally okay to be like, you know what, I have some needs tonight that aren't being met. I'm just gonna go to a sex worker and then go back to my happily married life, because like sex doesn't have to be bonding to someone for life.
No, it doesn't. And honestly, it's kind of like, because certain people like certain things, and partners who get together, they may have different I don't know, cycles or something, where it's like, I'm not really feeling that tonight. But like you said, people end relationships over sex. But I don't. Well, there's all kinds of angles here, but just on the surface, like the first thing that I was thinking is like, it's kind of, everybody has different tastes in food. Some people love pineapple on pizza, and some people loathe it. So if you're partners with somebody who, let's say, everything else is fine, you get along in every way except for pizza with pineapple, that is a deal breaker. Well, imagine if you had a friend who you could sit down and enjoy pineapple pizza or non-pineapple pizza with. Like, it doesn't detract from the relationship to do that. It's actually helps it. It's like, oh, okay, well, now that's no longer a point of contention. It's not something that we're arguing about.
Yeah, you get a choice. Do I want to fight or do I want to fuck?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You're like, I better fight.
And it kind of, here's the thing, and this is why I think sex work is such a hot button topic for a lot of people, and why people get all bent out of shape. I mean, religion partially has something to do with that.
Big part.
Yeah. I mean, though it is the oldest profession after all, and it's been going on. Well, it's not even humans that the animal kingdom. Well, I guess we're animals too. So lots of animals essentially perform sex work. That is a thing. So it is a natural process within animals, that we just do that stuff, trade sex for stuff or something. Like I don't have a problem with that. I don't think there should be a problem with it. But the biggest problem, I don't think, is necessarily specifically religion. It's this idea that somehow sex is a bad thing. It like inherently, people hear sex and they just kind of think negative thoughts about it, as if somehow just automatically out of the box sex is harmful.
And that's Christianity's fault, to be honest. I mean,
well, not just Christianity, Abrahamic religions, I think, probably overall.
Well, okay, yeah, I'll expand it, Abrahamic at least, but I don't want to say religion, because where did the Kama Sutra come from? Yeah. Sex isn't always bad in religion, but certain very influential religions have a very protracted stake in the game in making sex bad, while simultaneously being like, go forth and multiply.
Exactly, but only multiply according to our doctrine, and not what nature dictates to you. Not what feels right and natural. Follow our playbook, right? And if you don't, well, you're a bad person. You're
bad person. Bad person.
Naughty. Oh, sorry.
There's going to be lots of bad puns, by the way.
Yeah, I'm totally not into stuff like that, by the way. Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, don't call me daddy. Totally don't like that. Nope.
How about grandpa?
Yeah.
Old man.
Yeah, I guess it could be. Well, but that, I think, is like a huge component, though, is this kind of thing that's sort of ingrained in people. I mean, religion is part of it. Societal structures are a part of it that sort of condition us to believe that sex is inherently destructive unless you're following a certain set of rules, right? And then, it's totally okay.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. Like, the rules are arbitrary. There is no rhyme or reason for them. So of course, like, they shouldn't matter. But when you're raised from a very young age and basically brainwashed from day one to think a certain way, well, then you perceive these things according to that upbringing. Because I mean, you just have to sit there and ask, like, well, okay, what's wrong with sex? What's wrong with that? Like, how is it bad? How is it harmful?
They build in that feeling of having to be bashful about it, about enjoying yourself, and having people know about it. Ooh, like, oh no. You aren't like, I'm going to really enjoy this juicy, delicious apple, and I might be like, well, somebody might see me go, It's like, why is that derivation of pleasure okay to show everyone, and one isn't?
Or appreciation of music or art or something like that. Yeah. That's fine if you.
And I was having a conversation with somebody like a week ago about some naked man was like running around in Tacoma, and she said she called the police on him, and I'm kind of like, what violent harm comes of seeing a penis?
Divert your eyes, kids. You can't see a naked body, even
you
though
hit the nail on the head. She was like, but the kids.
Yeah. But the thing is, you just look at yourself in the mirror after a shower and you can see the same shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it is not, there's nothing inherently bad. Like, okay, this is the thing. I mean, as an anarchist, like the golden rule is the initiation of force can never be justified. That coercion, forcing somebody to do something, is wrong. That is wrong. And there's
Forcing
this
them to
sort
wear
of
clothes.
well, yeah. I mean, maybe I guess somebody could say, well, I didn't want to see that, but it's like, you see all kinds of stupid shit. Maybe I didn't want to see a PT Cruiser with the fake wood on the side of it. It makes me like, maybe I didn't want to see that. Should I call the cops because of that? Like I could see a dude with his dong hanging, dangling, and flapping around, running across the street, and it'd be like, well, that's Tacoma for you.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. It's like whatever.
If it happens at a house party with 30 people, you're like, oh my God, 30 people were exposed. It was like, Frank's naked again.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's this kind of whole shame about our bodies and things like that we, should be ashamed of ourselves or not be comfortable being naked.
We should
around
be ashamed
other
of being ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah, which I got a lot of mad respect for nudists that live like that. And again, it's the whole thing like, oh, nakedness equals sex, and it totally doesn't in that case. But I was getting to something. Need some more beer though. Just a second.
I'll go off on
the point I was going for is like there's this implication, like it's an implied idea that somehow sex being default bad, if you have sex with somebody, that you're possibly coercing somebody or there's some force involved. And I would argue sex work is the highest form of that, of I guess the least coercive form, because you in advance, the person, the sex-e and the sex-or, shall we say, agree in advance, like, hey, I'm going to do this thing, this act, we're going to do this thing in exchange for this amount of money or something. And if both parties agree, they meet up and they do it. Like, there it is. Like, okay, I'll give you some money and we have sex. And like, nobody.
I blinked and I missed the part about that was like really bad and illegal and dangerous. Can you repeat that part, because I think I missed it.
It's only illegal because there's legislation on the books that makes it illegal. And the danger,
if it's illegal, that means it's morally wrong.
Which that
was sarcastic.
I know. And the danger comes from it being in the dark, where you don't have, because imagine if it was like there was like an eBay for sex, right? You have clients, you have the sex workers, and everybody has a profile. You have ratings, and people can leave reviews like, hey, whoa, this person is really good. They do this thing or whatever. And hey, flawless transaction and stuff. Or if somebody's skeevy, a sex worker could leave a review for a client. It's like, oh man, oh no, this guy like tried to lock me in a closet, and don't just steer clear of him. Or her.
That does exist, but it's basically just as black market as the profession itself.
Well, it does, but imagine if it could just be out in the open, where everybody could access it and interact with it like that. That would make sense. That would be safe.
I like your point of view about how it's kind of like the pinnacle of having control of your sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly the way they should look at it, I would hope.
Yeah.
Is that they're fully in control. Now, that does beg the argument that I know somebody watching this is automatically thinking, oh my God, human trafficking. But those you have to separate too. It's like, yes, human trafficking does exist. It does fucking suck. And they utilize innocent young girls in sex work. That does not mean, ergo, all sex work is human trafficking, so therefore bad.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like they're not the same thing. And in fact, if sex work were completely out in the open and completely legal and on the up and up, uh, the trafficking side of things would probably be, if it didn't totally disappear, it would be so minimal as to be almost insignificant. The fact that everything is illegal, well, it puts like a shade over everything. Like it's obfuscated. Like you can't, and especially with things like shutting down Backpage and Craigslist thing, the dating side of Craigslist. Like, well, yeah, now you've just made it nearly impossible to find out what is going on and to actually like fight real injustice. Like to say that sex work is injustice is bullshit. Like and to conflate the two, it's the same thing. And well, if you allow this, then well, there's going to be a whole bunch of trafficking and stuff. Like, well, there's trafficking because it's fucking illegal, bitches. You know, like that's exactly why. Like, you want to get rid of trafficking, legalize it. If you want
exactly
more trafficking, then ban it.
The more light you shine on something, the fewer shadows to hide in there are. So,
damn, that's going to have to go in the intro.
Yeah, like you kind of create the thing that you fear the most.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's no reason for it. I don't. I just. It all comes down to this whole idea that sex is like a dirty thing, and I don't understand it. In my experience, it's been pretty good. Kind of like it. And yeah, very rarely has there ever been any coercion. But then again, like, it's not the sex that makes it something coercive. It's coercive people or oppressive people, like doing a thing, forcing you to do something. It doesn't matter whether it's sex or whether it's like, I don't know, swabbing the decks or going to war. Like, they're all wrong. You know?
Yeah, it's so funny if you like dig into what, you know, the core of people's problems with a thing are. It generally is, I don't know, it starts to fall apart under examination, I think.
Yeah.
Like you have to give it that real critical review so you can like chip away at your own conditioning. So it's like when people tell you sex is bad, they've got thousands of years behind them of this propaganda scheme.
Yeah.
That like is ingrained into our neural nets, and you know, like it's just constantly telling us, "Ooh, sex is bad." But you know, if somebody else is trying to like sell you on some snake oil, it's not going to work as well because they don't have thousands of years behind them. But
well, that's true.
Mechanism, you know.
And actually, you know, you kind of brought up a good point. Like, all this effort to portray sex as something negative, a dirty thing, like it's harmful, and yeah, sex is bad, you know. But then baby showers and gender reveal parties and stuff, like everybody celebrates when someone's having a baby, but it's like, do you not know how that works? Like, there's a thing that happens, and like, so the babies are okay, but the sex is bad. Okay, gotcha. That makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
Right.
I don't understand that shit.
But yeah, like the dividing line between selling things and having sex, you know, like where in in that combination does it suddenly become something that is worth all this hatred?
Well, and actually, yeah, that's a really good point. And I think I made this point. I mean, it's been enough years that I don't remember if I did or not, but I'm going to reiterate this anyway because it's part of a larger conversation. The whole exchange of a thing for another thing. Like societally, Western societies generally, you know, we view things like we're like, okay, it's acceptable to go on a date. Let's say traditional sort of date where the guy pays for everything and there's an expectation of, oh, hey, you want to come back to my place and we could fool around and stuff. And you know the outcome in advance that like you're going on a date knowing that after the date you're both going to go back to somebody's place and have sex. It's going to happen. And there is essentially a monetary exchange there that maybe the guy buys dinner or you pay for a movie or something, and afterwards you go back home and fuck. That's okay societally and legally too. You're totally fine.
But it's a coercive tactic that has actually built this like patriarchy versus feminism clash. Like
Well, yeah,
all of
yeah.
our hangups about sex created sexism.
Well, yeah, and not only and it's not clear what the intent is, and that's what's so nice about sex work, the prostitution, that it's on the table. Like, hey, here I am. Here's my pictures. You know, here's how much it costs to do these things. Somebody's like, yeah, okay, I'll pay for that, and then boom, there you go. Like, and that's it. And then everybody goes home and they're happy. But the whole classical version, like you're saying, does involve a little bit of deception and sort of manipulation of people, and especially because there's this kind of implied expectation of the outcome. Well, if you go on a date with a girl and you buy a fancy dinner and stuff like that, and she doesn't want to come back home, well, that's when people get bent out of shape and then they resort to coercion.
You know what? The idea of chivalry is actually a really biologically fascinating evolution of your penis trying to get laid. Basically, your penis is like telling its environment, it gets peacocking, no pun intended there. And it's trying to say like, hey, bros, I figured out a way to act that gets us laid. And chivalry therefore became this like outward concept of like honor and grace and kindness and protection to a woman, when really it was just like a dude trying to get laid. And now it's this sense of honor.
Which, I mean, you know, I'm okay with the concept of chivalry. I mean, I think
it's
it
really
should
just
go
being kind to another human being.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it should go both ways too. It shouldn't be just guys versus girls. It should go either direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it certainly does.
Yeah, especially now. Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, I knew this would kind of get into, you know, like core of human emotions, and you know, like going from sex to just like you know, sex that we buy or whatever, to like sex that we just want to have, and then like all the way down to the core of just like wanting to be around people, you know. Like it filters in, and as it comes together, it like gets into this sedimentation where all you need is love. Oh, that's how the Beatles came up with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good sentiment about that. But I think, I guess one of the problems with society with respect to sex work is this idea that sex without love is somehow bad or harmful or something. Like, do you know how many couples, and I would ask people in the audience, like, if you're with somebody, do you really love the person that you're having sex with? Like, I don't think, I mean, given that like half the marriages end in divorce, I'm going to say the answer is probably mostly no. That people are just going through the motions because they're expected to. And that's another thing too. Like, if you are partnered with somebody in some kind of societal structure like a marriage and having sex with your partner because you're expected to, well, isn't that a form of coercion too?
Yeah.
Like, are you being manipulated by, I mean, maybe not by your partner. I would say they're probably equally ignorant of reality, but they're playing by the playbook society built. And so, you know, how is that right? But somebody knowing exactly what they're getting into, knowing exactly what they want and what they're willing to give, trading for that. Like, here's another good example of the whole trade thing, like massage. You know, people will be like, oh, well, going to a movie and that's not intimate. Well, what about massage therapy? You go to a massage place and people put their hands on you. There's all kinds of oils and slippery stuff, and you're probably naked. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how much more intimate you can really get, honestly. And that almost feels more intimate than sex. But that's legal. Totally fine. Completely okay to put your hands skin to skin contact with another person. The law says, oh yeah, that's fine, but wait a minute.
With license.
Yeah.
There's a license for it. So like, why not get another license for someone to be a sex worker?
I don't think you should have to have a license, but you know.
Well, no, I know.
Why not? Yeah, no, I mean,
like if
you're right.
To avoid hypocrisy, just say, oh, this is how we're going to treat it. Mm-hmm. You know, you need a license to massage, you need a license to fuck.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a James Bond movie. License to fuck.
It does, but then again, like, I have a problem with the state telling people how to conduct their business when it comes to such intimate things.
That's for sure. I was just speaking to like legalize it, to tax it, and, you know.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like, if there is such a system in place, it should account for those things. Like, why not? Like, what?
Yeah,
it exists. Okay, here's the thing. Even in the US, there are places where sex work is a licensed legal profession. And in many countries throughout the world, it's either licensed or unlicensed, but it's legal to do that. Like, exchange. I mean, think about it. You're doing what you would do on any given date. You're just paying for it. How is that wrong? Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Why? So,
and it's over and done with in as long as time it takes, and you don't have to like self-induce slavery and be bound to that person.
No,
the rest of your life.
Yeah,
you can go your separate ways.
You don't even have to exchange.
If you liked it and go away again.
You don't even have to exchange phone numbers. You didn't have to exchange names, even. Like, who knows? Not gonna. Anyway, but oh man, I had a really good point, but I'm shit.
Sometimes there are phone more numbers. Or...
well, yeah, that is true. Oh, damn it. I had a really good point there.
Yeah, that was going in an interesting direction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'll come back to me. I just need a little more beer.
Yeah, it's funny how like even the concept of how I was talking about how chivalry was kind of an invention of our minds to, kind of speak to a certain part of our craving as a human. Love is also like that, like I don't know. It's kind of an extension of, not to be cheesy or like cliche, but like your heart. Like, yeah. It's that need for it is almost like this rhythmic pulse. It's like there are times that you really need it, and then there's times where you're just content as things are, and it's a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe all the concepts we come up with to explain our emotions and even deeper than emotions, like the biorhythms that drive the emotions. I don't know. Getting all
there is a point there that this is a very complex topic. I don't want to invoke this, but what is love? Baby don't hurt me. yeah, exactly. Do we have to like bob our heads now? Yeah. But nobody knows. I mean, in fact, I think it's really not known. Not a lot is known about human emotions to begin with, where they come from, what drives things, and how they operate. I mean, there's countless books written about psychology and stuff, and they're pretty much all wrong. And so for things to be kind of distilled into this legislative force where elected politicians, they're not experts. They don't know anything about human psychology. They don't know anything about humans. I mean, most of them are humans. I mean, there's probably some lizard people out there, but
and I think psychology is kind of a religion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about that in the past and probably will in the future, but there's this kind of deference to those politicians to decide for the rest of the population what is morally acceptable and then pass legislation based on that. And they don't know any better than anybody else. I mean, fuck, look at any politician and their personal problems. Come on. Like, really? They're the moral authority? Right. Okay. Yep. I'd buy that for $1. Come on. Like, but people defer to them and accept their doctrine as like a biblical text, essentially. Like, oh yeah, it's illegal. Like, well, so it was made illegal by a fucking crack whore.
You know what I think is funny is people are all like, oh well, it's old text, it's natural for there to be missing books from the Bible, and like there's a big gap from when Jesus was a baby to a 30-year-old man. It's like, you think maybe the manuscripts where Jesus discovers he has a penis just might vanish?
Mary Magdalene is no mistake, let me tell you.
It's like there was a significant chunk of Jesus' life if he was indeed real and a human man.
Dude, he's like, hey bitches, I'm the son of God. Swing, like I'm gonna have fun. I could totally see that. Like, I mean, hey, I'm gonna be crucified.
There's a reason they call me holy.
It's like, hey, I'm gonna be crucified. I might as well live it up a little bit before that happens. Oh man.
That's a deep joke. Ooh, deep hole.
Oh man.
Wah, wah, wah.
I like, yeah. I don't understand the. I'm trying to recapture this thought that I had, but it kind of centered around this whole idea that shit.
Oh, it's the worst.
I know it's all right. I mean, but basically, it's this. I mean, it comes down to hypocrisies that the legislators and the religious figures, like, they're doing the very thing they're telling us not to do.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that, well, you know, it is pretty natural. So how can be, I just don't understand how it can be wrong. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't understand about that.
Yeah, I mean, the do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. It's like that's so pervasive in our life in so many ways.
It really is. And my rule is, well, lead by example. Like, you first. Like,
yeah,
you know, you want to tell us to do something, go ahead and set an example. Right. Show us how it works, and then maybe if you're lucky, I might possibly agree. Well, but don't just come down all high on your ivory tower and tell people, like, oh, you got to do this because, well, I don't know, reasons.
Well, and you're kind of touching on something that we went over in the first episode. We talked about this in the idea of, like, you know, the pervasiveness of rape might actually be due to all of our qualms about sex. You know, like,
I agree.
When you can't do something you want to do, anyone at some point is going to reach this breaking point where they want to throw a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what that is, just with, like, horrible, violent consequences.
Well, and it's no different than people that are hungry or thirsty or cold. Or,
I mean, all like, crime is born out of necessity.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to note that sex,
fucking deep and scary, actually.
Yeah. Sex is one of those core things. I mean,
yeah,
it is a genetic thing. Like, this is why humans are so prevalent on the planet, is because of our genetic propensity to procreate.
Right. Why are so many priests pedophiles?
Yeah.
Do you really think?
Because they're told not to do it.
Yeah.
That's why. And they're told not to do something that is, imagine if somebody, if you know, you joined up with some kind of cult, religion, and they said, well, you're not supposed to eat anything ever. Well, there's going to come a point where you're very hungry and you're going to eat whatever is in front of you, even if it's like a tree trunk or something. Like, sex is the same way. It is an ingrained, necessary, intrinsic function of the human body. Like, we have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, we're told to do that by our genetics, and there's a very good reason for that. Nice thing, that we've kind of taken command of that too, so that we can do it without consequence, i.e., babies Fuck
Yeah.
babies.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, no, demonetized. Oh shit, I didn't mean
No.
that. No, I mean, no, don't have kids. Shit.
No, there's a biology aspect I wanted to bring into this, and that's it's healthy for us to be exchanging fluid and like renewing things and keeping it fresh. Like that is an effect of, let's say ejaculating once a day. It keeps the pipes clean. It's like getting regular maintenance on your car. Like there's a reason that we evolved to have that kind of slick system, where it's like always ready to go, because that's how we propagate as a species. So like just as much, if not more than eating, that's how important sex actually really is.
Yeah.
If you think about it, our eating is just so that we have enough energy to have sex.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, and that's nature. Like, why do you think there's so many humans on this planet?
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow.
It's so weird. It's basically like, oh, let's always like try to eat together, eat dinner together. And let's promise each other we're always gonna try to eat dinner together at 5:00. But then, sometimes, you're running late and you call me up and you're like, honey, I'm gonna have to eat out tonight without you. And then you're like, oh my God, I've been cheated on. If you think that sounds silly, and then it's like, oh, hey, babe, I'm not in the mood tonight. And then you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to go over to the neighbor's house and get laid. Yeah, all right. See you in the morning.
Yeah, well, and it should operate that way. That kind of goes back to what I was saying about sex being dirty, which also what you had talked about, sex being like something special. And I don't want to downplay that. Like it can be.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. Like the specialness doesn't come from sex. It comes from the relationship you have with the person.
It can eating is all of your meals like top-notch gourmet shit. Like your taste buds are like taste bud-gasming.
Been there.
Yeah, it's like that's a treat from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it doesn't mean like you're not gonna never go back to Burger King again because he had the best meal ever at like a super fancy, expensive restaurant. Like, no, you might eat like, fuck, I like top ramen sometimes. I'm like, okay, I could buy some like crab legs, but I kind of want some like top ramen today. 59 cents. Like that actually sounds really good. And I always come back to that. It's all about the relationship and cultivating the relationships and stuff like that. Sex is sort of a way, it's a lot of things, but it can be a way to enhance a pre-existing relationship. The idea that sex creates the relationship is actually the dangerous side of it. This idea that, if you have sex, well, all of a sudden everything's different. Well, you just met that person like 10 minutes ago. It's not different. Yeah. And that's where I think it kind of like ties into the whole sex work thing. Like, to parallel the analogy with food, does anybody get bent out of shape because somebody goes to a particular restaurant and there's a particular cook cooking food for somebody and you're eating the food and it's amazing and it's awesome?
Yep.
Do they blame the cook or think the cook is doing something wrong? It's like, no, everybody hails the cook for being great. Like, you are the most awesome chef. You made the most awesome meal. Like, well, so how is it okay when it's food, but not okay when it's sex? I don't get it.
Yeah, imagine a world where like you go read the newspaper and there's the sex critic, and he's all like, "Oh, you need to visit this sex worker. His penis gives out so many orgasms. You know, like we give this 5 orgasms." And you're just like reading reviews for sex work, and it's like, "Oh wow, you know, it's like food. We need to eat and we need to fuck."
Yeah, exactly.
So why can't you have a fuck every now and then that's like a 32-ounce prime rib, you know, like
well, yeah, exactly. And here's something I think that because I mean, there's going to be a bunch of people who are like going to be like, well, but if you hook up with somebody who's really amazing, you're not going to appreciate the person you're with. Well, that's not true. And I can say this because I'm poly and I have many partners. It doesn't work that way. Having an amazing experience with somebody sexually does not in any way make you consider other partners any less. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it is kind of the opposite.
No, I get that. They each have their own specialty, so it's always like a different experience or something, you know.
Well, and it, yeah, and I mean, I guess I don't want to necessarily equate things to food, but we've already made that sort of parallel there. But sometimes having an amazing meal makes that shrimp top ramen even more amazing. Like, yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting, you know, the way we think of ingesting food and, you know, having it served to us fancy and cooked very well to our taste and all that stuff is like, okay, yeah, like people throwing food in our mouths is just like a totally normal thing, but like people dropping loads in your mouth, that's a, you know, oh, dropping loads.
Dropping loads all over your glasses. Ah. Well, and
everybody look up Nick Manning on YouTube. Like,
well, and it's interesting you should bring that up because here's what makes things even more convoluted and confusing. So it's okay to pay for a meal or a movie or an outing on a date with the expectation you're going to have sex, and then you go back and you have sex, and knowing that the paying for that sort of led up to it. That's okay by law and by society, most societies. It's also okay to organically meet somebody and like each other and have sex. That's fine. Nobody's complaining about that. It's okay to pay somebody to touch your body all over in all the crevices with oil and stuff. That's fine too, as long as genitals don't interact. Don't know why that's a thing, but it is. It's also okay to pay 2 people to have sex in front of a camera so you can record it, package it, and sell it to customers who would like to masturbate or whatever to watch that. Oh, yeah, it's totally fine. Totally okay. But it's not okay if you yourself want to just pay somebody or to have sex with, or they want money in exchange for sex. That's totally verboten. Can't do it. Like
the only difference there is like in one, both people get paid. So
yeah,
that's the only difference.
I mean, you as a customer, it's like anything else. It's an exchange. Mm-hmm. No different than if you go to the grocery store, you see a pound of beef for $5.99 on the shelf, and you're like, I really want that beef. And the Safeway that you're buying it from is like, I'd really like that $6. And you're like, done. Good. Everybody's happy. I get my steak. You get your $6. Not that it's $6 now, but just as an example. But I just don't understand why, when there's genital interaction involved, that somehow everything is suddenly different and completely transformed into like a parallel universe where, that's wrong. But it's only wrong when these very limited conditions are met. I don't get it. I mean, I'd say we should ask a politician on the show, somebody who's in favor of this stuff.
Maybe like with the caveat that they can't craft an argument from religion.
Yeah, well, no, they can. We'll just see through it and shoot it down.
Yeah.
So that's fine. You can craft any argument you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like whatever horse shit you want, but like,
yeah.
Well, and we should be prepared to defend it in the world of natural law.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hi, Floyd. Yes, buddy. Uh-huh. Oh, good kitty.
Floyd's like, let me out of here so I can go get laid.
He's like, oh, there's this lady cat next door I want to hook up with.
These humans don't let us get laid. They must think sex is bad or something. Nah, they're not that stupid.
Exactly. Oh.
Well.
Yeah.
Break it to you, kitty. We are that stupid.
Hey, speak for yourself. Humans are definitely curious, I'll say. Well,
keep talking like that, they'll know that we're not one of them.
Oh, if I had busted out my tinfoil hat at that moment, that would have been cool. I would definitely love to interview sex workers, about this subject.
Oh yeah. It's always good to hear all the sides, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you very seldom hear like the story of the sex worker, and it's pretty fascinating stuff when you do.
Mm-hmm. But
like you don't think about what it takes to do whatever it takes to make your world keep turning.
Yeah.
Like whatever society has turned it into, as far as perception, has whatever effect it does. Like the core need to get it done is always going to be there.
Oh yeah, and I would kind of put things in the same box as like any other gray market or black market process, like drugs and guns and stuff like that. That like, there are people who want stuff, and there are people who provide stuff. It doesn't matter. Like this. It's fallacious to assume that because it's illegal, it doesn't happen. Well, that's nonsense. I mean, the 30s in the US is all you have to look to. The Prohibition era. Prohibition does not work.
Did all you say it does fallacious or fellatio us?
Well, talk
Because
to me.
you could have meant either, I think.
Talk to me after the episode. But there's this idea that, oh, you just ban something and it's gone. Like, no. In fact, in some cases, it becomes more. There's more of something after you ban something. Look at Al Capone in the 30s. Like, he wasn't wealthy and powerful because reasons. It was because of prohibition. That was why, because he was supplying a thing that people wanted in defiance of the illegality of said thing. And yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, since Al Capone died of like syphilis or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was syphilis, and it was because he didn't get treatment in prison because, well, he was in prison.
Yeah, but that reminded me of the other argument that people try to throw out against prostitution, and they're like, oh, but disease and stuff, and it's like I can't remember who I was saying this to the other day, but there's like a stigma between how do I say this exactly? Shit, I'm losing it. It was fuck.
Well,
let me
it's bound to happen to both of us. Let me throw something out there, like, because talking about disease and stuff. Well, first off, every disease, including AIDS, has pretty much been solved. Like, we got it sussed. Like, it's not really a big thing. Second off, it isn't because it is a job or a career, I guess, that, it isn't because you're selling your services that those diseases happen. It's sex. It's STDs. That would happen whether it was you going on dates, meeting up on Tinder or whatever.
That was the point I was making, is that, like, your ability to catch a disease doesn't have anything to do with the profession of the person that you're having sex with. It's like, it's the choice and the moment for someone to use some form of protection or not. And, and in fact, that can happen anywhere. It only takes once.
It's true. And it could be argued that people who professionally do things are going to act professionally. They're going to want to continue the work they do as a profession.
Yeah.
So
have you heard the term money maker?
Yeah, they're going to be extra careful, like much more careful than the random ass person that you meet on a dating site, who you don't know. But somebody who makes a living off of something, oh yeah, you can bet your ass they're going to be very careful and have all the tools to deal with things. But again, none of these things are as detrimental as they were in the past. Like, basically everything is fine. You might be inconvenienced by having to take some medication or whatever for a minute, but it's not really that big of a deal. And going forward, it'll be even less of a deal because, humans are working on solving that shit. So
like the inability to perform anymore might be solved without drugs. Are you saying?
Could be. Well, I mean that. Well, if it were legal, that would get even more attention.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you'd start tearing away at the point of having stigmas. I mean, that's what I think. That's how legalization of marijuana is probably going to come about. Is like, the more states that legalize it, the lower the stigmas become.
Yeah.
Until one point, everyone is just like, why is this illegal at all?
Yeah, well, and in Washington State, the first state to actually make that a thing, recreational use, nobody gives a shit anymore. No one cares. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Not to be pedantic, but I think Colorado beat us by a few days.
Did they? I'm so. Pretty sure it was whatever.
It was the same year for sure.
Yeah, it was very close.
Yeah.
But no one cares now. Like, it isn't a thing. But prior to that, and this kind of speaks to the whole legislation and societal expectation thing. Like, prior to the full legalization in Washington State, there were all kinds of people, the naysayers, like, it's gonna be so bad, and there's gonna be like 6-year-old kids smoking pot in the schoolyard and blah blah blah. And it's like, now no one's saying that. It never came to pass. Okay, the first year everybody was smoking it up and having fun because, like, woohoo, but now it's like not really a thing. Literally no one cares. Like, there are pot shops all over the state, all over.
Yeah, I don't even care anymore. I used to fucking hate pot. Like, and I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so the same thing could happen with prostitution. Like, if it were legalized, like, I think it's the illegality. Well, I know it's the illegality. It's this idea that laws are moral, that laws are built on some kind of moral framework, which they're not. They're self-serving to politicians and political systems and corporations. 100%. Prove me wrong. Do I have to get my Steven Crowder mug and like sit at the table? And I mean, it really is.
Huh. I'm sitting here trying to think of ways to get Medicaid to cover my ability to get one off.
But so what you're talking about too, the stigma, like looking at people. I mean, we're talking about sex work, but what about people that struggle with sex? Like, this whole idea that, you're not manly if you can't get it up or please a woman or something. Like, okay, look, as a guy that's pleased many, many, many men, you don't even have to get it up to do that. To be pleased yourself. Like, you can have an enjoyable experience. But society, again, sort of looks down on people. But it's like, well, bro, you're going to be there someday.
It almost is like a discrimination.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Like it's a disability. Just as much as, because if you say that the ability to have sex isn't a necessity, it shouldn't ever be covered by insurance, and it's like, well, try to tell me how we would exist if it weren't a necessity.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
like, it's not only a necessity at certain times. Like, you want to make that argument, it's like, well, while you're exhaling, you don't really need that oxygen, right?
Oh man,
it's okay if there's like hardly any oxygen in the room. You're exhaling at this moment. Like, nah. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
And a lot of that does go into psychology as well. The like, your feeling of well-being, of sense of self, like what makes you whole. And if society has decided that what makes you a whole person is like getting a boner, then, well, yeah, that should be covered under insurance. In fact, it's critical. Like, I can't think of, maybe drinking water. You can go 3 days without drinking water. I don't think I can go 1 day without masturbating. So, or having sex. So yeah. But it is like, it's really critical, especially in light of the way society views people. And we should totally not like, oh
yeah, no, that's a great point. It's like, this is something that everybody does all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's by yourself, with somebody else, with somebody else's, however you want to get it done. If you want to whip it out in Safeway while you're looking at bread, you're just like, whoa, oat with 9 grain. Oh, yeah.
It's look fucking sexy.
And then people are like, oh my God, that's horrible. It's like, maybe dude just had to come right then.
Yeah. Okay. Please don't jizz in my bread. Clean
it up on aisle 6.
Yeah. I don't judge anybody for anything else though. Like, whatever gets you off. There's some stuff I don't understand, like foot fetishes and stuff, but it's like, whatever floats your boat, right? I don't care. Because, if you saw my Pornhub search history, you'd be shocked. And I'm sure it would be the same for everybody. And it's okay. Like, whatever you're interested in, like, the sexual side of things is no different than, I don't know, your Pandora playlist or something like that. Like, yeah, you like this kind of music and stuff. Whoa, you like this kind of porn, whatever. It
right, yeah.
Be viewed negatively. It's just the kind of thing that you're into.
Imagine that you're like on your dating site. I like long walks on the beach, and Beethoven, and tying you up by your nipples. Like,
okay,
what if that was normal?
But yes, call me daddy. Oh, all right. Never mind. I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like we totally say this, satisfying this set of needs is perfectly societally fine to talk about. That one, you should keep that quiet.
Well, and in fact, for people who are unsatisfied, and I understand that there are a lot of unsatisfied people out there in their relationships. I think the lack of satisfaction comes from this whole stigma about sex and about exploring different avenues and doing different stuff. Like, if we were free to sort of explore and do what we want, and maybe occasionally hook up with a different partner or something, or maybe we look up stuff online and refresh the book from time to time. Why not?
I feel like there's an endemic starvation in sex of the entire planet, and like, we almost need to start a charity that helps people get laid when they want.
Okay, I'm on board with that. Yep.
Like, and I think we just basically explain the legitimate reasoning behind such an organization.
Well, and also think about, like, all of the bad things that have happened all these mass shootings and wars that have happened, like how many of them could be solved if somebody just fucking got laid?
Right.
Like, if Putin just got laid, would all this Ukraine Russia stuff be going on right now? Like, because he'd be like sitting in the afterglow, like, yeah, that was a good night. But instead,
can you imagine instead of Snickers commercials where someone's like hangry and they turn into like somebody cranky, and you know, instead of being like, dude, have a Snickers, they're like, dude, go rub one out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because yeah, that's a great point. Like, people would be way more chill if we were just getting it up all the time.
And just, I mean, I think the parallels are pretty obvious between like being hangry or thirsty or something and being horny. Like, you do stupid things,
yeah,
to satisfy those things, and it is like sex is a core important, I guess, life-sustaining thing in a sense. And to ignore that, well, we ignore that to our detriment.
Yep.
Get ready for World War III, bitches, because somebody didn't get off.
Yeah. You know, I would like to see a graph of wars that were started over religion and wars that were started over blue balls.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
and then show me wars that were started for some other reason. And I bet it's not even going to show up on the scale.
I don't know that there's necessarily a spreadsheet cataloging all that to the kind of specification, but I think, you know, if we could know that, yes.
General Napoleon, did you invade this place because you couldn't come last night?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, I did.
Probably. Yeah. Oh man. Do we just solve all of the problems of the world through sex? Because I think they,
maybe
I think
we solved all the sexual hangups.
Well, yeah,
and get to the road where the perfect world is.
I mean, that is the trajectory. Like, I think we're both aiming for.
Yeah.
I do think sex is definitely a component in there, and I mean, I'm a hippie free love kind of person, so you know, anything goes in that regard. Because I think it really does free people from a lot of the problems that plague the human race come down to like self-segregation over sex. Why sex and not food or water or air? I don't know. Yep. It seems kind of bullshit to me. I mean, they're all kind of right up there, and being so important, it really bugs me that there's this whole stigma about sex work that somehow it's wrong. Like, no, you know, no, nobody is like berating the guy that runs the donut shop making donuts to feed people in the morning or give them coffee. They're not like, oh, you're causing harm to the children. Like, nobody's saying that. No one's saying that for Culligan from, you know, their water service and stuff.
Right.
Like, why sex? Why this one thing? I don't get it. It's one of those. I'm probably never going to understand this one. but I think it's as important as any of those other things.
It is. And
And
it's ridiculous that we have that much of a stigma around it.
Well, and very briefly, I know we're kind of getting into we've been going on for a minute, but I want to talk about like body positivity. I know that that's been a thing.
I do have to take a leak, so we might need to stick a commercial in here.
And we're back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, this is probably something we should make a whole episode out of. But body positivity, like I kind of talked about this earlier about the nudist colony kind of thing, feeling comfortable with who you are and what you look like.
I just did a minute microscopy about that not too far back.
Yeah. And I think it kind of like connects with that too.
Well, yeah, it's like that is part of it. Like we kind of brushed on this but didn't talk about it much. The combining of sex and nudity. Just because one is required for the other to actually happen, like it's like that would be like, oh, if your mouth is open, it's like a thing that you should be hiding, but it's like it's something you have to do. So why like hide it?
Yeah, you can use your mouth sexually.
Yeah.
And you should, but that doesn't make your mouth a sexual organ,
right?
And that actually brings up a lot of thoughts. Like, why is it that it's okay societally, most societies, for guys to walk around topless, but not women?
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Like, why is that a thing?
And it's equally okay for them to be like, oh, look at his pecs. Those are so like sexy. Yeah. Like they can derive pleasure from seeing topless men.
Or
men are deprived of the pleasure of seeing topless women because that's illegal.
Well, okay, I have hair. You don't. There are women who like hair, and there are women who like guys with no hair. Like,
right.
You're sexy, I'm sexy, like to different women. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of the same, in fact. So why is that a thing? Like, how come some people like arms or legs? It's okay to have your legs exposed, but not your nipples or something, or your genitals. Like, Well, who says? Why is that a thing? And why do they have to look a certain way? Like, okay, as a connoisseur of women, I love all body types, and find something interesting and pleasurable in everyone. Like there's something that everybody has or does, and it may not necessarily be a structural thing. It could be an actionable thing, which to that, like it's not like how the whole point is. It's not how you look. Like, and don't compare yourself to other people. Like, sure, there are going to be supermodels, whatever, that attain some sort of status. They look a certain way according to somebody's criteria, but that doesn't mean you're less of a person. That doesn't mean you're nobody or anything.
Yeah.
It really bothers me. Like, as somebody who grew up being kind of a nerd and kind of an outcast and stuff, and not really feeling like I was worthy, that's something I want everybody to take away. It doesn't matter what society tells you things are. There are okay.
Well, I've always kind of been made by society made to feel weird for not necessarily thinking that like Cindy Crawford was somebody that I imagined like having sex with. It's like she's pretty and nice to look at and all that stuff. But like as far as what makes me sexually attracted, that's maybe a little too perfect if you want to like
I agree.
Define perfect in a
I totally
way.
I completely agree that people I'm kind of a wabi-sabi kind of person. Like, I sort of like people that have imperfections. That is what endears me to a person, and attracts me to a person. It's like, if things aren't quite right, if you're a little asymmetrical, it's actually a lot more sexy than being symmetrical and societally perfect. And that's an important thing for people to realize. Like, oh shit.
No, yeah, and that will vary in degrees from person to person.
Well, exactly. It isn't. There's this idea. Oh, there's the one for you. Okay, well, there is the 100,000 for you. On planet Earth, there are a lot of people who will find you attractive, no matter what you look like. There are a lot of people,
and vice versa. And if you don't think so, just think of how many people a day that you look around and find attractive yourself. Like your tastes are just as varied as the next person's. So your chances of being like desirable to someone else are pretty much just as much as any.
Totally. And nobody, a cook that works in a Chinese restaurant isn't going to lament the fact that a particular customer is like, I don't like sesame chicken. I'm gonna go over there to that burger restaurant. They don't care. They're like, all right, well, whatever. There's a whole line of people behind you waiting to get sesame chicken. So it's okay. Go to the burger place and get your burger. Like, and as humans, we should be doing the same.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Don't worry about the people who don't like you. Concern yourself with the people who do like you, because there are a lot of people.
Yeah.
Probably more than you know. And this comes back to society. Like, societally, we're conditioned to believe, like, oh, we have to find this idealistic, perfect person that fits the mold of what we've been told we need. But it's like, well, who cares what you've been told? What about what you yourself actually want?
Mm-hmm. We're almost made to feel guilty for wanting certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you shouldn't. You should like real girls, as if like people that are thin and have like a low body fat ratio or whatever, like that's somehow like fake or bad, or like they sort of go overboard with like the too ugly concept, overboard on the other side, like the too pretty concept. Like these are aberrant, they should be like avoided. Like there's stigma on both ends, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
You can be too pretty or you can be too ugly, and it's like, who gives a fuck?
Well, and what is pretty and ugly? It's subjective. It's like it isn't. In fact,
there are times I'm just gonna say this because I will bet money everybody's thought this before. There are times you look in the mirror and you're like, I look pretty good, and there's times you look in the mirror and go, man, I don't want to be seen.
Yeah,
and you know what? Everyone has those days, like
even
random occurrences.
Yeah, even the so-called pretty girls have the same thing.
And all that matters is how you think of yourself. So it's that interaction between you and the mirror, that's the one that matters. And it's going to change every day.
Yeah. And I think for the people who are presumed by society to be good looking, their challenges are actually a lot more difficult because they have to uphold some kind of impossible standard.
Yeah. And I guess you could make the argument on the downside, like people are just ugly because they're made to feel a certain way that like grooms that appearance. Like it just like a feedback loop,
which honestly, like, I don't see a distinction there between the ugly pretty standard and any other standard, like skin color, stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, you're too dark, you're too light, or something. Like, there's someone for everybody, and there's a lot of someones for everybody.
Yeah, like the other day, a security guard saw like just like this much of my shirt under my biker jacket, and he was like, "Oh, Megadeth, I'm a huge fan." He was like, "Don't let the skin color, scare you away." And I was like, I didn't even fucking register that, but he like felt like he had to tell me like, it's okay, I'm black and I like metal. Like, what? I feel bad that he felt he had to like
qualify
point that out to me. I was just like, dude, right on. I love meeting people who also like Megadeth.
Yeah.
And he was like, I know it's weird that I'm black, but I'm like, hey, is it okay if I like metal while you like metal and our skin colors are different? And it's like, fuck, dude, you killed me.
And that's one of the problems, societal conditions. Like, I miss the 90s. I miss the times when it didn't matter what you looked like.
People were nice to each other, so
Yeah.
they didn't have to be dicks to each other about not being nice enough to each
Yeah.
other.
It was like free love, and just nobody cared what you looked like. They didn't even care your name. Uh, we need to go back to those days.
The 90s were pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
We're getting old.
Yeah. But it's there was some good stuff there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, so I guess we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone down so many rabbit holes here. It's like the whole yard looks like moles have torn it apart now.
We've been deep sea diving so long, I might think I'll find something if I can have sex with.
Me too. Okay, check out our OnlyFans. We probably should do that, honestly. And if you have an OnlyFans page, like, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. Like, I've seen videos.
I'd say advertise it in the comments, but I bet YouTube is gonna
Nix that one.
But try it anyway.
Yeah. Go ahead. We like pushing the limits.
Yeah.
Oh God. But
I do remove the robots, like the obvious robots. But if you're like, hey, please watch my OnlyFans, it's like how I make, dinner appear on my table. I'd be glad to leave that comment on ksmvidcast.com. Hosted out of Panama. You'll never be censored.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's gonna stick around forever.
But anyone else, go ahead and comment on the YouTube video. Sure.
Yeah, and this whole idea of being ashamed about sex work, like,
or having to hide in a certain country to talk about sex work.
Exactly. I would like to have people on. I might know some people. Yeah. I think this is a topic that seems on the surface to be very, very simple. Like, oh, well, you're just talking about prostitutes and stuff. It's like, well, honestly, this is way, way deeper than that. We're talking about the human condition, like the way people perceive their own place in the universe. Yeah, exactly.
Like, how many times a day do you comment on being hungry or being hot or cold? Like any condition where it varies from your like set point. You're like, oh, I'm too hot, I'm too cold, I'm hungry, oh, I'm full. Like, it's okay to talk about any of these things, but as soon as you say, man, I'm fucking horny, or Jesus Christ, I just got laid and it was so great, like, none of that is okay.
Exactly. So I was picturing, while you were talking about that, like, getting into an elevator and the elevator small talk, like, hey, how's the weather, and how you feeling? Like, oh man, I'm so hungry. Like, imagine if you got into an elevator and it's like an 88-story building, and so you have quite a ride, and you get into the elevator, and us dudes, like, we get in there, dude standing over in the side, and he's like, how's it going? And you're just like, man, I'm so fucking horny. Like,
I thought you were going to go a different way with that and be like 88 floors and there's this sexy elevator operator, and she's sitting there with her like mini skirt and her little hat off to one side, like
Well, okay, I would like that too, but like
some
why
kind of
why would
Aerosmith song in action.
yeah, love in an elevator. Oh man. But why would it be uncomfortable? It's like, and this is something I just briefly I want to throw out there. Like,
Fucking Red Dwarf went through that. Like,
yeah.
all of shit.
Well, so I back in the day in the 90s, I was going to Pierce College, and there was this dude that I used to spend every lunch with, and I had like a 2-hour lunch break. So it was kind of a bit long.
This is gonna get gay, isn't it?
What?
And I don't say
Kinda.
that to be a mean.
Actually, kinda, yeah. And but this is the thing. Like we talked for hours and had a lot in common and enjoyed conversations and stuff like that. And one time he was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm gay," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's fine." And like, I'm not gay, but in fact, honestly, I was kind of flattered that like his advances towards me, like, oh, okay, well, okay, that's, I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah,
like it isn't. It's not going to make you gay because somebody gay likes you.
right.
It's like, what? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's got stories there.
Oh yeah, probably.
Like,
so. But that talks to the whole like self-identity and the societal conditioning and like what we expect and what makes us feel like something, whatever, like what makes you a man.
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's so perfect that we took something that we spent 20 minutes on and turned it into like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so much deeper than we sink dived the first time.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of green on that. We were a little bit of YouTube virgins at that point.
Episode 4 was it?
I think like that. It was very early.
6, I don't remember. It was early, very early.
Well, I'm hoping that our next version of this involves somebody who works in the industry, like an interview.
Yeah, because that's the only missing piece is somebody from that experience giving voice to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that maybe the missing element was the groundwork that we laid in this conversation in exposing like how ridiculous it is that we put so much, I don't know, like accoutrement onto one particular need.
Yeah, there's so much weight in there for no reason other than religiosity and politics, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it seriously is like looking down on somebody, like actually, and not like ironically, for liking pineapple on pizza. Like,
kind of is. Except
I don't associate with that person because I'm never having sex with them because they like pineapple on pizza.
Except in this regard, you could be arrested for consuming pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
And the person who made that pie can also be arrested. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
That's how silly this whole thing is.
Completely ridiculous. Like,
Like spot on. That's
Well, I think that's probably a good point to end on, honestly.
yeah.
We're probably gonna have a few more beers after this, though. But god damn, this is a good conversation. Yeah. So to the viewers out there, if you're a sex worker, like I'm not gonna say I want to interview you for my own personal reasons, but like it would be nice to have a conversation about sex work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Any aspect of it, like,
oh yeah.
because really, like, there is a gradient from going out to dinner with somebody to doing some stuff on a camera for people to watch where there's absolutely no physical interaction, or doing something with somebody else on camera where there's physical interaction that's both lucrative and consensual, and fun.
Yeah.
And then you start going into like other realms, and all the way through to like being married and devoting yourself to one other opposing sexual organs
Until you cheat on them.
right.
Yeah. And I joked earlier about if you work in sex work, but the thing is, like, if you're into things that I like, I might hire you. Let's say in Thailand, we can go to Thailand and I'll hire you. There you go. Yeah, that I'm off the hook now. But everybody's into different things.
That even harkens back to our episode on age and how it's illegal in one state and totally cool in the next state over.
Which kind of ties into this too.
Yeah. And man, people get so up in arms about age. And I only just a few days ago actually heard of, what is it? I can't even remember what it's called now, like phrenology, and instead of pedophilia, or ephronelia, or some there's some word for like prepubescent teenagers being your preference, and ephron, I can't read. It was some Greek sounding shit. but it was basically saying that, like, oh, pedophilia, that's like a mental disease, but between the age of like puberty and what we societally call an adult, well, that's not a mental problem. It's still illegal, but it's totally understandable. So there's like a gradient right there.
Yeah.
And people just kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of strong thoughts on both sides of that.
Yeah, and I think there's parallels to a Family Guy. I think kind of poked fun at this too, with the a younger guy with an older girl, and they were like, "Oh yeah," and then like a younger girl with an older guy, it's like, "Oh," like, but what's the difference? And I think it kind of like goes into a lot of, like, there's parallels.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, I think we've
fucking age, man.
Yeah.
Go off on that.
Yeah, it's not age, it's experience. But
yeah. I'll just say, I once had a thing for somebody 10 years younger than me who had her shit way together, more than I did. and still do years later. Like, like way more mature than me, 10 years younger. But people were like, yeah, you're too old. Like, the fuck? Meanwhile, I've dated people more than a decade older than me, more than one occasion, and nobody really bats an eye at that.
Yeah.
Except the women. I can tell they feel like this societal pressure for them to not be cougars or whatever. But it's like,
oh, but that's my favorite thing.
Right?
Oh,
like,
fuck.
Who fucking cares how old someone is?
Yeah.
I like people older than me. I like people younger than me. I don't have a fucking preference. Constantly, people are like, oh, you're dating such an age person. That must be your preference. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Well, why are you slinging those stones at me? Like why do I have to have a preference?
It goes back to food. Like, if you're eating a pineapple pizza, people are like, oh, you're eating a pineapple pizza. That must be what you eat every day. It's like, yeah, dude, do you really think a human being can eat a pineapple pizza every fucking day and like stay alive? I mean, occasionally there's salads and some chili or something, a hot dog once in a while.
You know what? I every time I go grocery shopping, I buy some applesauce and I buy some yogurt, and I take them to work with me because I know I get hungry in the afternoon before I leave work, and I eat them about the same time every day, and I eat them in the same order and around the same time of day. And somebody commented on that, and I felt annoyed that they noticed. But why? Like, if that's what I like doing, why should I feel like weird about having a ritual or
that's
whatever I look forward to at a particular time.
The thing is, like, Michael Jackson, the man in the mirror, like, look at yourself. Everybody has rituals,
right?
We all do. So why pick somebody out and pick on them for their rituals? Like, we all fucking have rituals.
Yeah.
We all have our stuff.
Anything a ritual. It just has longer length of time between gratification, Yeah. Like going to movie theaters could be a ritual. If you do it every week, every day, every year, like, it's still a ritual,
well, and what defines the delineation between something that you do occasionally and something being a ritual? How would you know?
Yeah.
Is there a hard line in the sand where,
I mean, it could just be mathematical. Like, I've done this more than once. I must like it to some degree. Oh, yeah. I've done this many, many, many times. I must like it to a much higher degree.
Well, but
okay, you like something. That's great. Cheers.
Sure, but I love shrimp top ramen. And
shrimp will kill me. So and if you like shrimp, great, because you can have mine.
Yeah, exactly. That's always my point. Like, oh, more for me. Yeah. But if I have, some shrimp top ramen a couple times, does that make it a habit? At what point is it a habit or a pattern or a ritual? And at what point is it just like, well, this happened a couple times?
Yeah. Or like, I've had sushi a handful of times. I will never, if I'm out by myself and I'm hungry, go, well, I'm going to go get some sushi. But if somebody like really wants to go get sushi, I'm like, all right, I'll find something to eat.
Yeah, because you can always find something. Oh, except Dollar Chinese. Like, Oh my God, no.
They were really good back in the day, but man,
That's true. But that $2 fucking
yeah, undercooked chicken, so juicy and succulent, but so not worth it.
Yeah, not worth the hell that rained down on the toilet. Oh man. Well,
so I came out of my room looking green.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, Casey, are you okay? And you were like, like, oh shit.
Young and dumb.
Man, the early aughts was
and full of $1 egg foo young.
Oh man, now I'm gonna have to go down and pick some up. Oh shit. Oh well, it's probably a good time to end.
Yep.
Like
people deep sink dived into our beers enough.
Dove
and
I've always wondered about like the dive and dove and
we should learn the proper form of that and then proceed to never use it.
Exactly.
This is how it goes. It sounds weird when you talk proper.
Yeah, it does. Oh,
that was not proper.
Yes,
it's true. Sounds of weirdness when you do not speak of the proper.
We should do an entire episode in the Atlantic accent.
Oh, fucking A. Season 4, if people haven't like figured out the show yet, like, where the fuck are you?
Yeah, this is the drunkest and the bestest season ever. Holy shit.
I wonder if I'll make it to season 5 before I die of cirrhosis.
Okay, well, all right. Challenge accepted. Die of cirrhosis first.
Or pancreatic cancer.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Whichever may come first.
I'm on it. Like, let's make it happen.
And then somebody's got to take over for me and tap in. This shit needs to go on forever.
Exactly.
Do it.
Do it. Oh, man.
You're slightly zany, slightly acoustic. Adopted, bald, former, long-haired, metalhead. Then you could maybe step in for me.
Grok, 1974. Oh man.
All right, what's your Craigslist ad for a replacement when you die?
I'm gonna have to think about that for a minute. Yeah. Well,
it's like in my dying breath, I'm like typing out a Craigslist ad for my replacement. He's got to have the worst dad jokes.
Oh man. Fuck, this is the best show ever. This is so good. Well, we're like almost 2 hours. Can we
oh yeah.
Maybe we could be under 2 hours. Let's make it.
Yeah, we could try.
All right. So well, everybody who's out there who's stuck it out, you know, hour 58, 33, 34, 35. You're still here. Thanks. We salute you. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
They count the days, my, to kiss your lips and hear you sigh. This ain't the first time I find myself counting Counting the days until you're by my side. Feel this energy grow inside. Fruits of passion we cannot hide. Your arms around me, I start to shiver. I think just how much loving do I give her. I brush your hair away to see your eyes. The way they're locked with mine is no surprise. It's in this moment that we see the truth we could never have captured in our youth. They count the days, my, to kiss your lips and hear you sigh, sigh, sigh. This ain't the first time I find myself counting the days.